I have videos in a playlist on the Boy in the Box trial. I did not cover the entire trial. I was going to, but right when I started to do it, he got convicted, sentenced, all that stuff, and then it was Tracy's time to come up, and I thought that she would be coming up way before now, but that is not how it happened, because they, of course, as you know, she's still going to come up. But I thought for those of you who didn't know a little bit more of the background, I would give it to you the best I could. So Timothy and Tracy Ferreter, they have 4 children. The 2 oldest were adopted. The oldest is the victim's sister, whom they referred to as FF during the trial. I don't know if they're saying their names now or not, but she was 17 during the time of the trial, and Timothy, I believe, I said, here I keep going Timothy, there's too many Timothys. I'm doing the other Timothy case, and then Timothy is the father, all that good stuff. And so, pardon me for doing that. Let me just, the victim, I think they call him RR or something like that. And so start over. They have 4 children. And the oldest is the victim's sister, whom they refer to as, I think, FF during the trial. She was about 17 years old during the trial. They adopted her from China. I think she was about 2, I think something like that. So after that, after adopting her, they decided they want to adopt another child with a similar cultural background. So that is when they adopted the victim. I think they called him R or something like that. They adopted him from Vietnam. And so he was 17 months at the time. And the victim, he was 15 years old during the trial. So the brother and sister are pretty close in age. So after that, the next youngest, Tracy gave birth to a girl they call In, and she's about 13 years old at the time of the trial. And then the youngest was a little boy, and he was 2 at the time of the trial. So, as a result of all this mess, the Ferreters lost all the children. I do not know where the 3 oldest ones are at this point in time, but I know that the youngest, the little guy, is Tracy Ferreter's mother adopted him. So I know that, I don't know if they're allowed to, well, at least the mom, before she goes to prison, if she does. But that's how that family dynamic is right now. So, going to what happened, and I got this from a police report, I jotted it down, but always do your research. But, so I guess apparently Timothy had some medical issues. One of the things that they said he had was called reactive attachment disorder, which it is considered a serious mental health condition. The child doesn't have a normal bonding experience with a parent. Before I go further, the interesting thing about this is that if you are following the Shonda Vander Ark trial, I'll be putting up soon. I just recorded a video of Paul, the brother in this, Paul Ferguson, who is responsible for the demise of his younger brother. But he had said he has reactive attachment disorder. So that's interesting. I mean, they say it's really kind of hard to diagnose, but in this victim's situation, it would make more sense because it says it's common when a child is separated at birth and then adopted later. And in this victim's situation, his mother left him as an infant at a Vietnamese hospital. And then, as I said before, he was around 17 months old when Tim and Tracy Fareder adopted him. So he may have not had some of that proper bonding time. Of course, if think about it, Paul probably didn't have proper bonding time with Shonda. But so apparently his problems increased, his behavior increased, and Timothy felt he had to build this box. Now, they had lived in Palm Beach County years before. The victim was very young, and then I believe they moved to Arizona, where he had built a similar structure, and Tracy had just given birth to the youngest. And I think he had a room at the other place, but when they moved to Florida, they immediately had enough bedrooms for everyone except the victim, and that's when the box, so to speak, was built in the garage. It was, well, let me get to how this all came about, how it came arrested, and how they came to be arrested, if I can get the words out. And again, this comes from an arrest report that was written by a Juniper police detective. So it says I said Juniper, I meant Jupiter. 2 Jupiter police officers responded to a missing person investigation. This was on Friday evening, January 22nd of 2022. Tracy Fareder reported her 14-year-old son was missing and had run away from home several times before. She told police he had several behavioral disorders and was in trouble at school the day before, which is why she thought he ran away. At this point, an officer told the main detective on this case that police had been to the Fareders in December of 2021. According to the officer, someone named Jack called to say he was asked to build an office in the garage of their home. Jack said he would do the job, but after receiving directions, he thought it was very strange. Jack said the room was an 8x8 space in the garage with its own ceiling and door, which had a deadbolt lock and knob only on the outside of the room. There was no knob on the inside. So in other words, if someone were on the inside of the alleged office, they would not be able to exit unless someone opened the door from the outside. Looks a little, that's why I'm calling them the sneaky, sketchy, shady Fareders. Jack added, the space needed electricity and a window air conditioning unit, plus a camera, little similar to the Shonda case, except Shonda's was much worse. But here we go with the cameras, plus a camera in the ceiling. And he would only have 2 days to complete the job. So on Sunday, January 30th, police say 2 officers knocked at the door and nobody was home. An officer called Tracy Fareder to ask if they could check for her son inside, but she refused. Little shady, little sneaky. Around 10 that night, 2 other officers returned to the home. She said her son hadn't returned and denied the officers entry. Finally, after a long conversation, she allowed one of them in. When showing the police officer around, she told him the 2-year-old and the boy, the victim, shared a room. Shady, sketchy, sneaky. And the officer described it as a vibrant colored room, but he didn't notice any belongings of the older boys. And so when he asked where his belongings were located, Tracy had stated the structure inside the garage contained some of the boys' toys and belongings. So the officer went down there and he noticed bare walls, a ring camera, and a bucket. And the police report said the victim was discovered on a security camera at the middle school where he attended. So I guess when he ran away, he thought he would go to the middle school. I'm wondering if he thought maybe he would be able to see somebody that he knew or something like that. I'm not sure, who knows. But the next part is a little bit heartbreaking. So the officer took him to the police department. Words written by the detective said he asked the boy to describe a typical day in his home. So the victim said somebody would wake him in the morning, tell him to go to the bathroom, then he would go back to his room, someone would lock the door and usually turn the lights off. He would be in the room until someone would return after dropping his siblings off at school. He was further told he was not allowed to play with friends. And the officer, according to this report, he asked, "Why did he run away?" And the victim said, "Because I feel like no one loves me." He also said he didn't feel safe because somebody gets really aggressive with him. That's heartbreaking. And there's a lot more to it. I mean, and you could watch the full trial, but the reason why I didn't continue to cover it is because if Tracy does go to trial, which she is supposed to keep doing, they will go through all of this again. But they have mountains and mountains of those Ring camera videos of Timothy admonishing him, yelling at him, and there's a point where Tracy's in there, which I'll share. I think they shared it. I'm not sure. Somebody will share it. I'll share it, or they'll share it. But where she was kind of, talking to him. I mean, so she was definitely involved in this. I'm just, but that kind of gives you an idea of what was going on. And he was pretty much limited to that room. And his food would be brought to him, but the bucket was for him to go to the bathroom. They did not make a toilet for him, so he had to pee and poop in the bucket, and then he would have to go dump it outside in the back where nobody would see him. So it's where I keep saying that the Shonda Vanda Ark case is definitely like the Ferreters on steroids. It's still hideous. And, he got, I think it's 5 years with 2 months probation. I thought my opinion was, it was too lenient. That was my feeling. But yeah, they said there is thousands and thousands of videos. And, he just had a mattress on the floor, the bucket, I think a desk. And don't get me wrong now, he caused problems. It sounds like he ripped off posters. He had some issues. But if you hear him, you will, if you check out my videos, you'll hear his testimony. He might testify. Well, he will need to testify at Tracy's trial if she goes. And he is very intelligent. Very, very, very intelligent. But he had issues. They were at their wits' end, which I get. But they just weren't sure what to do to help. And they thought that would be the solution, which, in my opinion, is a very poor one. But, so there's that. I hope that kind of helped give you all an idea, a little background of the situation. But they definitely were very shady about it. Here's sneaky, shady Tracy Ferreter. Okay, so I thought I'd share some of this. I was pulling some stuff up. This is a reporter from Court TV who was inside watching this, the trial, and there's describing the room, and how it all was. And so I thought it'd be interesting for y'all to get a better perspective if you've not watched the trial.
Julia, tell us please what you can see in that video.
Julie, the lights have just now come on, and what we're seeing is the son, the Farrader's son. He's putting on clothes, taking off clothes, changing his shirt, moving things around the room. And it really emphasizes for this jury, and I'm sure the state wants to emphasize this for them, that he lived out his daily life here. That this is where he was day in and day out doing regular things that kids would do, but they would be inside the home with the rest of their family. They'd be able to come and go. And you get a sense of that watching him just not talking to anyone, not interacting with anything, not really having anything seemingly to even stimulate his mind. But this is where he is putting on pajamas, taking off pajamas, getting ready for the day, making up his bed. He's in this room. So no doubt that's what they are doing in times like this, where you're not seeing the arguments, you're not seeing him in the dark, but you are seeing him do these daily tasks inside of this 8x8 room.
Julia, as you know, it's so upsetting to just think about that this is the way that child is preparing for school. They give him a couple slices of bread, slap some peanut butter on it. There's your breakfast, kid. Eat it in the box where you don't have a sink to wash your hands or a proper toilet to use the restroom, a shower so that he can bathe and be clean going to school. This is nothing short of appalling. And Julia, I think what we're learning throughout this trial is that room wasn't just a timeout room. As you said, this was this child's daily life.
And that's what this 4 hours of video that the state planned to show today is really showing. We are showing those volatile moments, or seeing those volatile moments between his parents and the child. What they're also seeing, Julie, constantly in the bottom right-hand corner of this surveillance video is that orange Home Depot bucket, the one that they have heard over and over about, that he was made to urinate and sometimes defecate inside of that bucket. He said that he only urinated in it during the time that he was in Jupiter, Florida, because this abuse that is alleged in the indictment is only for the 6 weeks. But he constantly used that. Even when he was in Arizona, he was given a bucket. And Julie, just to let you know, the lights are now off inside of the room again. So this is nighttime for him, day in, day out.
Julia, it's hard to even think about. And the child is told he's not allowed to turn the air conditioning on. And if he does, he gets in trouble. He gets screamed at, and Florida is sweltering.
Yes,
I mean,
Florida
think about
is
all of the trials that
sweltering.
you cover in Florida. I'm sure it's very hot where you
Horrible.
are outside right now, my friend. Think
It's
about
hot
this
right now.
garage.
Yeah, it's hot right now. My hair's getting frizzy from the humidity now. But that is a constant concern. And when you think about someone in the garage, it seems that they did understand that that would be an issue. It's why they had the man who constructed this putting that air conditioned box in there. But right now, again, it's dark inside of that room. He's wrapped up in the sheets on his bed, and this is his life, essentially.
And it seems like he is about to go to sleep, or maybe is sleeping in the video, according to the notes that I'm seeing, Julia. And it makes you wonder how a child can even sleep and rest peacefully under those circumstances.
He doesn't seem to be sleeping peacefully. I will say that, Julie. There's a lot of tossing and turning that we're seeing. There's some getting up and readjusting the sheets so that he can then try and sleep again. So it does not seem to be a very peaceful sleep at the moment that I'm seeing in court right now.
And the jury is seeing all of this. They're seeing him changing, Julia. I'm getting word from our team there that the jury's seeing him urinating in the bucket. You know, what a degrading thing for the jury to have to see this because of the Farrader's decision to go to trial.
Oh, wow. And actually, I'm seeing that now. I'm watching him go and get that orange bucket. His dad came in, and he then turned on the light. His son went to the orange bucket. So it seems like there may have been a discussion, like that's what you need to come and take out. And he had to take his own bucket out of that room. So this 14-year-old child is told to take that bucket out of the room, and now we're just seeing the door open and he's gone. So we understand from what the prosecution has said in this case that he was made to throw it out in the backyard himself, clean out that bucket, and was told apparently that, don't let the neighbors see you. But right now we're just seeing that empty room right now with the door open.
Julia, I wanted to ask you about the neighbors. It's hard to imagine them not seeing this box constructed in the Ferreter garage, existing in the garage, the child going to and from, disposing of his own waste. Has there been any evidence about any neighbors getting suspicious of the Ferreter home?
Julie, I just want to let you know that he did come back into the room with that orange bucket, and now it looks like the door is about to be closed again. Yep, there goes the door. Door closed again. So now that he's cleaned that up, and his dad was there to tell him, take that out, and now he's back in with the door closed, and we can presume, according to what the state has said, that the door is now locked behind him.
Julia, did the neighbors notice anything suspicious?
Not that we know of yet. Nothing that's come into evidence that the neighbors noticed anything suspicious or that they shared anything with police. Only the man who constructed this structure, he felt uneasy about it and did contact police.
Yeah, these Ferreters, they were sure stealth. Julia, it's so great having you be able to watch what these jurors are watching and share it with us. You're going to continue doing that as we continue watching the videotaped evidence and listening to it live.
So this is an idea of the room he was in, which, it definitely looks like a palace compared to what poor Timothy Ferguson had, but still very cruel. So this is what they're checking out now. I think the jury is getting ready to watch like 4 hours of these different various Ring camera videos.
For the defendant's adopted son. Now, remember, Court TV is not allowed to show the videos because the alleged juvenile is the victim in it is the alleged
That's right.
juvenile.
You're just doing the audio.
We can hear the audio. Defendant Tim Ferreter is charged with aggravated child abuse, false imprisonment, and child neglect for locking the child in a box-like structure in their garage, a structure that they had built. Julia, always great to be on with you. You're there live. Tell us what is happening in court right now.
That's right. 4 hours of video is what the state said that they were planning to show this jury today. We are several hours into it. And what we're seeing right now is what we've seen over and over again. This child victim putting on pants, putting on a shirt. This is his everyday. We saw a screen that comes up, which lets the jury know what the time code is for this. So it's a date in January at 8:43 a.m. So he's starting his day. He's alone. He's inside of this room. He's folding up the clothes that he was wearing, and then he's putting on the next set of clothes so that he can start his day. It looks like, though, the door's locked because he's not going out at all. He's just there seemingly waiting for someone to come and unlock that door.
All right, Julia, this case is something else I just have to mention. Primacy and recency. I think it's a pretty smart move by the state to have this, as I understand it, and fill us in, some of the last evidence they present to this jury. The last thing they're going to see is this feeling of being in the box with the victim.
That's a great way to put it, Ashley, because it is taking them there. And once you've been watching it hours at a time in this quiet courtroom, it's as if you are living through these moments with them. And you're right, this is the end of their case in chief. We thought they were going to rest yesterday. That's what they told the court, but things ran a bit over. So this is expected to be what's either the very last or at least close in time to the last of them resting their case in front of this jury. And to let you know, as far as the video, he left the room. It seemed that his mom came in, said good morning. He left the structure that he stayed in all night, and it looks like the lights are out now. And so usually what happens at this point, if he doesn't come back in, is we're going to see a new title page that will tell these jurors what the date is, what the timing of day is. There it is, 12:25 p.m. So middle of the day, and now he's back in the room. This is January we expect that this may be a school day, but it could be a weekend day. So he could be waking up, leaving the room, and then by lunchtime, he's back inside of the room. He's at his desk right now.
And one of the other things I noticed, Julie, on the amazing notes our field team is giving us is that in one of these videos just played, you can hear the sound of a toddler's voice in the distance, which to me even highlights for the jury, guess what? Guess who's not inside this 8x8 room with no windows? The other children.
The other children are not. And actually, what we've learned through the opening statements in this case is that the reason that they first moved him into the structure was because they had a baby on the way. And they wanted a baby room. And there was not space for all 4 children to, it seems, have their own room. So they moved him out to the garage and gave the baby one of the rooms that was inside of the house. And there have been times on this surveillance video that we've seen the toddler come into the room just in a cute little voice asking the dad, what is this and what is that? This is normal for them inside of this home. The child is there seeing what's going on, seeing that this is going to be the room that his brother is going to be in, but you don't throughout the day see other kids in this room. So meaning, you think about a room for kids, normally siblings are coming to play in the room with siblings. Even if they have separate rooms, they play with each other in the rooms. We're not seeing that happen. The only time I saw the toddler inside of the room was when the dad happened to be in there and seemed to be watching the toddler.
Ugh, it is crazy. And there we see mom watching on. She gets to be there. These trials are separated. I'd like to just talk about moments ago some of the other video that this jury watched. And again, as you pointed out, the date is highlighted. So we know this was January 15th of 2022. And Tim actually comes into this 8x8 room, and the bucket that we've all heard about, Julia, he says to the child, is it dirty? And the answer is yeah. And then the doors open, and the father says, neighbors don't need to see your blank bucket. When I say blank, it's a word we can't say on TV. And so, he has to bring it back in. And then again, he asks about the bucket. Is it dirty? I mean, to me, it's just so fundamental to think that it's okay to have a bucket and say, oh, is it dirty now? And don't let the neighbors see it. To me, that indicates there's something wrong with this. There's
Sketchy,
a problem
shady.
with the bucket being dirty and having him use a bucket that you don't even want the neighbors to see it, Julia.
Oh, the state is absolutely emphasizing that, and I watched that moment, these jurors watched that moment of the child having to carry his own bucket of urine out of the room and then come back moments later with the same bucket to put it in the corner. And it's prominent in that video even now, where he's lying on the bed. It looks like he may have a book or may have that school order tablet that is the only thing he was permitted to have in the room. He's just laying on the side of the bed, and you can still see that bucket. But you're right, the admission of don't let the neighbors see you, they want to really, as far as the state, emphasize that shows that there was this admission or understanding that this was a wrong thing, and they understood the guiltiness of what their actions were.
Yeah. And we talk about some people online, people are talking, and some feel like this wasn't inappropriate, that there were behaviors by the boy that warranted this kind of treatment, that it's not abuse. But I go back to, it's not a timeout in a room in the house, like you pointed out, where other kids can come and go, but rather it's an 8x8, the lock on the outside. And something else in the video I wanted to ask you about that really bothers me is he is told, don't touch the air conditioning. Do I have to say it again and again and again and again? Don't ever touch it. I mean, again, he's in this room, and so maybe arguably there's air conditioning, but he can't touch it. The light switch is on the outside of the room, so he can't touch that. He can't unlock the door. These are the things, to me, that, in my opinion, make this abuse of a child.
What we're seeing right now is him sitting on the edge of his bed, and they have ticked off the different times. So we saw 12, We saw 1, and now we're seeing 2 o'clock, and he's still there. So it may be that the state will keep showing you how even during the day, not just at night, just not when parents weren't around to be able to know what he was doing, but even during the afternoon hours, that he is still inside of this room. And they've had to be careful about not taking up too much of the court's time, not dragging this trial out. So though they had thousands upon thousands of videos, they had to pick the ones that are going to give the best depiction that will support their case against these parents.
And just as a reminder, Julia, and I'm so appreciative that you've been there and watching all of this firsthand, can you describe the room? We've seen the pictures of the outside of it as it's being built, but tell us more about the inside of this room. And I would say a box, not a room.
Sure, inside, you've got those 4 walls. They're painted white. The door is an adult-sized door, a regular door that you would see in a home. When the parents come in, they don't have to duck down. It's not any smaller than a normal bedroom door. They walk right in, and it takes up a lot of the room once that door is open because it's already a small area. It touches the bed. So when that door is open, the side of the door is hitting the side of that twin mattress that's in the room. So that gives you an idea of just how small this is. The twin mattress is up in the right-hand corner of the room. It's on the floor. There's been a back and forth of whether there's a box spring. There's definitely no headboard. There's definitely no legs, no frame of a bed. It is seemingly, from this vantage point, just a mattress. And it has sheets on it. It has a comforter on it now again. And then next to the bed in the upper left-hand corner is a desk. And that's where sometimes we see him sitting. That's what he's doing right now, is sitting at the desk that's in the upper left-hand corner. It's a small, maybe wooden desk. There were at one point some posters up on the wall, but we did see video of him taking some of those down. And the defense made sure to mention that in the highlights, rather in the opening statements where they were highlighting things. And just point out, 6:20 p.m., he's still in the box, Judge Ashley. This could be the day that he was in there 18 hours. But back to the description of this room, we know that it has a concrete floor, and there's a rug or carpet on the floor as well. Looks like it's a dark colored rug. And then you see the bucket. That's the only other thing, the orange bucket in the bottom corner at the foot of the bed, inside of this space that if he laid down, there could only be 2 of him head to head on the length of this room.
All right, and I love you
And
pointed
not 2
out.
of him going the other way.
And I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry, Julia. I know you said it's 6:20 still in the box. Let's go into court moments ago.
What did you say happened with that fight? Remember you told me what happened with that fight?
Yeah, I think it popped off when we were doing the moving things in the car.
Did you say Baba saw that? Did you cover it? That's what you need, right?
Sounds like he's talking to mom in that one.
I already did it. And then I had 2 copies of
Sure, you do.
59.
You have pencils, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Bring it on.
I don't know.
And again, this is some of the video. We can hear the audio. We can't show you the video because the young victim, who's a juvenile, is on that.
Before they go on a little bit, I did want to note that he was able to go to school every day. He would go to school, but he would have to return to that room right when he got home from school. Sad, sad.
And the other thing I notice is when Tim or mom come in, they'll say, "Where are you going?" Well, he doesn't go anywhere. He plops down on the chair. "What are you doing?" They have a quick chat. Every time they come in, they seem to say, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" Well, where can he possibly go, and what can he really be doing? Because there's nothing in the room. He doesn't have devices. He doesn't have a computer. He can't leave. The lock's on the outside. So I feel like there's also an element of control, and it goes back to that point for
Just a
viewers
little bit.
of, is it parenting control or is it abuse? And speaking of control, I have to bring up, while we're looking at her on the screen, Julia, the wife, the mother of the child. So many viewers have said, why is she even in the courtroom? Well, we know if she's not being a witness and because she's out on bond, she can choose to be in the courtroom. But tell us your observations of how she and Tim, the father husband, have acted when you've seen them in this courtroom.
You know, even if she wasn't someone who was a co-defendant, even if we didn't have her picture, her mugshot, you would automatically know that this is the wife of the man who's on trial. They have not been shy about affection. They're inside of the courtroom. They're walking the hallways. The jury hasn't been made completely aware of who she is. The defense didn't point her out during their opening statement. They didn't have her get identified when the son was on the stand, but it's likely clear to them because during sidebars, Tim Ferreter will turn his chair around and slide up to where his wife is, and they will have these private conversations. And I think jurors likely at this point in the trial, day 4, have put 2 and 2 together that this is the woman that we are seeing there in these videos.
Right. And let's go back into court. Just moments ago, I went to listen in as Tim, the father, the defendant, is speaking to his son inside that box. Let's listen.
Let's go take a shower. Is it clean?
All right, we know that's at 7:03. He's saying to him, let's go take a shower. And again, he asks, and Julia, he seems to do this every time he goes in there too. Is your bucket clean? Yeah. So he knows he's given him that bucket for using the bathroom. Now, I had thought that there was some point that the defense said, you know, that wasn't necessarily a bucket given to go to the bathroom, but I may be misremembering that.
I remember during opening statements that the defense attorney said the one design flaw in this room and the room in Arizona was that it did not have indoor plumbing, it didn't have a bathroom. And that's why at night he had to use this bucket. So they did own not only that there was this problem with the room, but also that it wasn't the right idea. They've owned that and said that he perhaps should have taken a different route, but it doesn't make it malicious, it doesn't make it a crime, but that they should have come up with a better method than this. But certainly that's part of the routine. Coming in, good morning, is there anything in the bucket? I mean, it's to quote the son on the stand, dehumanizing in a sense, to have someone who's having to carry out their own bucket with their elimination overnight. I mean, it's just hard to fathom, and no doubt the jury is really going to have a tough time with this one.
Okay, so what I'm showing you here is why I call them the shady, sneaky Ferreters. Because, and this happened back in January of this year. And he's been in the Palm Beach County Jail during that time. Not now. But what he's been trying to do is get out on bond while he's fighting his appeals. And I do have a video up in the playlist. There was allegedly some job offers for him, like at Mazda, I believe it was, if he was let out. And apparently he has a really good friend who I think he paid the bond for him the first time, and that's why he was able to stay out until he went to trial. The name of, let me see, I'm going to show you here, and then there's actually like some short news reports that's easier, but I just want to show you. So this is this guy. This is his good friend, Mr. I don't know if you call it Zimmerich or Zeimerink. They'll say it correctly on there. So he's the one, what he was trying to do is to, say that they could live with him. And so they're saying he testified that he's originally from the Netherlands, is married to his wife Jolene since 2006, and has been a U.S. citizen since 2019. He's been in West Palm Beach since 2002 and has owned a home in Palm Beach Gardens since 2016. He's employed as an operational consultant. He's known the defendant, Timothy Ferreter, for 15 years and described himself as even more than good friends. He posted the defendant's original bond in this matter in cash and that he got his money back after trial. And at that time, he was again willing to post any appeal bond that may be required if defendant is released on bond pending appeal, and that he could pay a bond up to $25,000. But he could go higher, but he would have to liquidate some assets. And he was willing to do so because he feels it is the right thing to do, and that the defendant is a good and honest man and has been so for many years. Blah, blah, blah. And see, the prosecution's concern is that he will be a flight risk. And he's saying that the defendant is good and honest, and he does not believe the defendant will flee the jurisdiction because he would not want to risk having him lose the bond proceeds. And I'm going to just call him Mr. Z, specifically denied hiding any assets of the Ferreters. On this point, the court did not find Mr. Z's testimony to be credible, and indeed such testimony appeared to be belied by the cryptic conversation he had with the defendant, in which the defendant's assets were discussed, including a specific reference to assets held by Mr. Z for payment of the Ferreters' expenses. The court also notes that based on the conversation entered into evidence by the state between Mr. Z and the defendant, it appears Mr. Z has detailed and specific knowledge of the defendant's finances and assets, and indeed is and has been intimately involved in asset protection discussions with the defendant. And they're talking about all this stuff. And then he was also asked questions specifically addressing the Mazda employment letter attached to the defendant's November 20th motion. Mr. Z testified that he was familiar with the letter, but he was not involved with its preparation or creation. He learned of the subject letter after the fact, and that it was his wife, Jolene, who actually prepared and signed the letter. After she had a conversation with their housekeeper, now we're getting the housekeeper involved, whose husband worked at Mazda, and the housekeeper provided the information for the letter to his wife regarding the Mazda, and his wife typed and prepared the letter based on such information. So the husband's denying he knew it. They were always saying the letter was fraudulent. They were right. That's why they are sneaky and shady. So the judge was like, get out of here. You don't have any, you're not going to have any bond. They say, curiously, Mr. Z denied having any knowledge of the Mazda letter prior to its use and was evasive in his responses to the involvement of Mrs. Ferreter regarding the letter. He also denied having any prior discussions with his wife regarding the letter. I don't believe it. Nope. They don't believe it. They don't think they're trustworthy. And that because of that, they do believe he is a flight risk. Also, let me see. There was somebody else too. Hang on. They go on to talk about Mr. Ferreter, Timothy Ferreter, the convicted felon now. They were talking about him being evasive about his assets, and that's why they do really believe that he could be a flight risk. They said similarly on cross-examination, Mr. Ferreter was evasive when asked about his wife's current location and residence, indicating that he believes she is in Illinois, possibly residing with her uncle, and that he and his wife do not talk about where she is residing. I don't believe that. He was also evasive when answering questions concerning his wife, and the minor child, who was adopted by Mrs. Ferreter's mother during these proceedings. Defendant testified that he only has assets in the United States, but given the substance of defendant's jailhouse conversation with Mr. Z, the court has severe doubts as to defendant's testimony regarding his assets, including the amount and location thereof. Defendant did indicate that he lived in Arizona for a while after arrest, and that the last location of his truck, which it appears he valued at approximately $40,000, was in Arizona, the same truck the subject of the jailhouse discussion the defendant and Mr. Z had regarding to sell it to his brother for $1, and I'll play that jailhouse call in a minute. Further, he said he sold his house in March 2023 and no longer owns any real property in Palm Beach County, Florida, and that he has been employed since 2022. He has not been employed since that. He has family in both Arizona and Illinois, but no significant supportive family relationships in Florida. The other thing that was interesting is there were some jailhouse calls, visits or calls that were recorded. Oh, here was another thing. A lot of things. He's talking about money and talking about bankruptcy proceedings. I think he's trying to hide his money and that he would flee is what I think. That's why they did not let him go. And also, further based on evidence submitted by the state defendant, also has international contacts and a close friend outside the United States. In this regard, on October 14th, 2023, defendant spoke with Sev Deborzati on a recorded jail phone call. I'm going to call him Mr. D because I'm not saying his name right. Mr. D testified on the defendant's behalf. Yes, he had a lot of people there and resides in Australia. I do remember that. If you haven't watched the full thing, but if Tracy goes to trial, the same people will probably be coming back. On the phone, defendant asked Mr. D to support his wife, and Mr. D says that he will do whatever it is to help, including if Tracy wants to come here, everyone is welcome, and we will take care of whoever needs to be taken care of. Notably, blank, and they're talking about the youngest, was removed from the custody of defendant and his wife by the Department of Children and Families. Their parental rights have been terminated and was adopted by a family member. The defendant, after having had the court deny release pending state sentencing, now seeks to be released on in-house arrest pending appeal. Okay, let's see. And basically they're saying, okay, so he has somebody who's out of the country too. So I think what they're trying to say is he would be a flight risk, and it's just too... I think he had a motion for a new trial. There is so much paperwork, but I wanted to kind of highlight those. But no, there's some more. But that just goes to show so really it sounds like that Mr. Z, his friend's wife, fabricated that whole Mazda thing. That's all very sketchy and shady, along with all their friends. So now I'll bring up some of the little like news reports that cover it very nicely, really. Here's a brief clip, and this was back on January 16th, 2025. I just found these on the local news, more of the local news, I figured, court TV and long crime, but sometimes the local people are the best to get your info. So here's a short clip on.
A Jupiter mother charged with locking up her son in a box-like room in the family garage. Tracy Farrader, now scheduled to go to trial in July. Her husband, already being held in jail, appealing his child abuse conviction last fall. He's trying to get out of jail during the appeals process. Our investigative reporter Terry Parker is here with exclusive details about the couple. Terry, what do you know about the Farraders tonight?
Todd, in a hearing this morning, Tracy Farrader, who faces the same charges as her husband, got a trial date, a plea deal date, and a lawyer willing to take her case after the first one quit. And we now know who forged a bogus job offer letter to the judge on Tim Farrader's behalf.
State versus Farrader status check.
Tracy Farrader stood by her new attorney, Mark Shiner, in court Tuesday. Shiner telling the judge that he is now back on her case as long as he doesn't have to go to trial this month as originally scheduled.
After reviewing the discovery the last couple of weeks, I think I could be ready in July. I could be ready in July.
Judge Howard Coates says he thinks that's an excessive amount of time to get ready to defend Farrader on charges she locked her teenage son in a box-like room in their Jupiter garage. But he agreed because he doesn't want problems with an appeal.
I'm concerned of the risk of possible fine.
But Coates was not as agreeable last week when Timothy Farrader came before him asking again to be freed on bond while he appeals his conviction.
Now I have to say, I know if you hear me, I'm annoyed with them, clearly annoyed with them, because they obviously have the means. They live in a very expensive place. I know, I've been down there, and I couldn't afford to live there. Most of us couldn't afford to live there. And I have to say, even though since he's been in jail, prison, I mean, he's got the little bit of a gray beard, but he's still been able to keep his hair looking pretty good. I don't know what he's trading to get some hair product, or maybe they figure out some sort of food or something you use as a hair product, but his hair still looks pretty damn good. But anyhow, I digress.
Coates concerned about this fake job offer letter sent to
as he
him by
should be.
Farrader's attorneys.
Shady.
Mazda Palm Beach said it was forged, and Farrader's attorneys quickly withdrew it and apologized, saying they had no idea it was fake and they never even talked to Farrader about it. The judge saying he finds that hard to believe.
Yep, that's right.
Sounds almost fantastical, but I'll let you respond.
Turns out the letter was written by the wife of Farrader friend Colin Zimmerink.
There he
Zimmerink
is.
testified
There he is.
their housekeeper is married to a sales director at Mazda, and she informally got the job offer for Farrader, and his wife wrote it. And he's offering Farrader a place to stay if he gets released. Plus, he'll pay Farrader's bond.
It's the right thing to do. I know Tim and Tracy. I know the children. I know all great parents.
But I've been sure about to get open the truth, all the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Farrader himself testified that he would never jump on, risking his friend's money, and that his 5-year sentence isn't even that long.
It's a short time, 5 years, and I think there's no reason to not to do that. It's the right thing, to do. Make sure I fulfill what's required by.
You know what? Shut up, Tim Farrader. You know what makes me mad? He's willing to get up there to talk about himself and to avoid being in prison, and yet he wouldn't get up there and testify about what and why he did what he did to his son. And again, it's like I say with all of these people, is because I think he really doesn't think he did anything wrong. But he's lost all of his children, all of them. Oh, okay.
Judge Coates praised the local media for reporting the forged job letter in the first place, saying without our reports, he may never have known fraud was being committed on the court.
Well done.
He's reserving ruling on whether to let Farrader out on bond, and Tracy Farrader's plea conference is set for June. Terry Parker, WPBF 25 News.
Well, see, there you go. Thank you, WPBF. That's ABC 25. Excellent, excellent. Let me find something else for you. Of course, Tracy, now see, her trial is scheduled for July 12th, but they just went to court a few days ago. I'll play a little clip of that. And I don't know if she's going to do a plea bargain or not, but what they're saying is that she's up for the same charges Timothy is. And there's dozens upon dozens of those Ring camera recordings. And so it keeps being said that they think the only way she'll get out of doing it is taking a plea and, let's just be real, throwing Timothy under the bus, because that's what they had kind of wanted him to do before, but he refused, and I really thought he believed he was going to get out. But what's interesting about this motions hearing, that was this, of course, this is back in December, but what she was going to do is she was going to ask the court for help, saying, it even says up there that she's indigent. So see, that's another indication that they, I believe, were probably trying to hide their assets. Now, since then, I don't think she's saying that anymore, because of course she has an attorney. So we'll hear the latest from that. Okay, so most recently, Tracy Ferriter had her plea hearing on June the 10th. And again, I was able to find somebody local that covered it a little bit better, and also you get to see Tracy's attorney speak. So let's take a look real quick.
The Jupiter mother charged with child abuse and false imprisonment for forcing her adopted teen son to stay in a locked box-like room in the family garage may be able to avoid trial. A plea conference was held this morning at the courthouse in Palm Beach County, and prosecutors and Tracy Ferriter's defense attorney told the judge they need more time to discuss the terms of a plea bargain. Well, tonight, the two sides of this case are not on the same page about what punishment would be appropriate if Tracy changes her plea. Well, here is our I-Team Chief Investigator Mike Magnoli. He's been following this story from the very beginning, and he joins us now with the latest.
So when things wrapped up, I spoke with defense attorney Mark Shiner. He says that both sides are talking, hashing out details, and it sounds like there could be a plea deal on the horizon. But if those talks fall apart, Shiner told me about something that would be very different in Tracy's trial, something that we did not see in Tim's.
Well, you're going to hear from Tracy in this trial.
She'll take the stand?
She will definitely talk and take the stand, 100%. And she will tell the jury what really happened. Not a professional who's hypothesizing what they read in a textbook. You'll hear from the person who lived this.
Let's unpack what Tracy Ferriter's lawyer just said, that she'll testify in her own defense if this goes to trial in July. And his comment about the professional and the textbook, that's a reference to the expert witness testimony that Tim Ferriter's defense team relied upon. It's important to remember that Mr. and Mrs. Ferriter do not have the same lawyers. Before my talk with attorney Shiner in the courtroom of Judge Howard Coates, I watched closely as the lead prosecutor and Shiner talked quietly before being called up. This chat was about what the terms of a plea bargain might look like. They told the judge they're still working things out. Tim Ferriter was convicted at trial and is now serving 5 years. Tracy facing similar consequences, and she might not want to put this in the hands of a jury.
I don't think
the
you
Ferriters
do,
were arrested
Tracy.
in February of 2022 because investigators found this strange cell-like room where the couple detained their adopted teen son. He endured hours of being cooped up in here when he misbehaved, a bucket to use for a bathroom. The Ferriters say his psychological condition, reactive attachment disorder, made him violent and unpredictable. They didn't know what else to do.
There's a misconception here about what do you do if you're in her shoes?
Mr. Shiner, who initiated this? Who came to the table first?
That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter whoever comes to the table. It just matters that when you have reasonable prosecutors and defense lawyers, generally most cases get resolved. Not all. That's why we have trials. A lot of them do.
So the defense and the state will reconvene on the 24th, and that's when we could find out if there will be a plea bargain. I'm Mike Magnoli, CBS 12 News.
Excellent job, Mike. And I think there's another one that follows this. And it's talking about before they go in, but explains a little bit more about the expert, which really didn't work well for the Ferriters. So hopefully this is going to be the next one.
Soon see some major developments in a story that we've been following closely since February of 2022. We call it the Boy in the Box case. The Jupiter mother accused of child abuse and false imprisonment. Tracy Ferriter now heading to court for a pretrial hearing, and a plea bargain could be on the table.
Yeah, that's right, Jim. And right now, you may remember Tracy's husband, who also charged in this case. A couple opted to try to be tried separately. Now, Tim Ferreter was also found guilty last year. He is currently serving his 5-year sentence. Let's bring in our I-Team Chief Investigator, Mike Magnoli. He has an I-Team extra for us tonight. And Mike, what do you know about Monday's court date?
Excuse me, guys.
Good evening, Luli. Well, it's a plea conference. Tracy Ferreter says she's not guilty, but will she want to take her chances with a jury? There's about a month left before the trial, and at any point between now and then, the state or the defense could initiate a deal. If that doesn't happen, a new expert witness will take the stand.
All right, Mr. Bushy, has the jury reached a verdict in this matter?
That verdict was guilty on all counts. It was back in November when Jupiter father Tim Ferreter and his defense team went through a 2-week trial. They wanted to convince a Palm Beach County jury that the Ferreters' decisions and their actions were flawed but not illegal. Jurors didn't see it that way. The Ferreters, Tim and Tracy, found themselves in legal trouble 2 years ago when police discovered this structure in their garage. No windows, a door that locked from the outside, a bucket for a bathroom. This is where the Ferreters confined their adopted teenage son when he was acting out. The boy was kept in here for long periods of time, alone in the dark. But the Ferreters said he suffered from a condition called reactive attachment disorder. They were at their wits' end, trying to deal with his violent tendencies. The mom, Tracy Ferreter, is now facing her own trial. In the latest round of defense motions, Tracy Ferreter's attorney formally introduces a new doctor who will be called upon as an expert witness. He'll be questioned about the disorder and the struggles that adoptive parents have controlling it. Mind you, Tracy has a different lawyer than her husband. So, with a change at the defense table and on the stand, perhaps the outcome won't be the same in trial 2. But the time to plea bargain is now. Having sat in the first trial and the sentencing, the I-Team saw how that first expert witness did. On cross-examination, the prosecution didn't have a lot of questions about the symptoms of reactive attachment disorder. They wanted to know about treatment, and the expert testified she would never recommend what the Ferreters resorted to.
Not only was it harmful, but none of the ways in which they addressed him or he was treated would be useful as constructive punishment, correct?
Right, no.
Dr. Jerome Polyakov, expert in child and family psychology, isn't on the Ferreter case, but I've talked with him about reactive attachment disorder before. Let's role play here for a second.
Sure.
Okay. I'm the prosecution, and you're on the stand as an expert witness. Are there any circumstances, is there any scenario you can imagine where, as a professional, you would advise somebody to treat reactive attachment disorder with extreme isolation? Put the kid in a room and lock him up there.
I can't imagine. It's incomprehensible to me. It reminds me of the movie and the play Marat Sade, right? Which in the 1800s, people were locked up in straitjackets, and when they started to howl, were doused with cold water and left to rot in their own excrement, right? That's not how we fix problems in this century.
All right, I reached out to Tracy Ferreter's attorney to ask about Monday, any insight into what's coming. Didn't hear back from Mark Shiner before news time. I'm Mike Magnoli, CBS 12 News.
36 right now.
Okay, so we already know, though, what happened because we saw the Monday thing prior to it. Yeah, the only way, it'll be interesting if she takes decides to testify against him, or I don't know, the plea deal, I guess, could be she could throw him under the bus. But I don't know, would she still have to testify? I'm just thinking it's going to be hard. It's going to be the same thing. And I saw a piece, I don't know if I can find it, but I think it was Court TV, where the jurors were talking about what helped them decide is that the older sister testified, and she was in total defense of the victim. And also, when they did their victim impact statements, the victim was very gracious to his dad. It was heartbreaking. He spoke but the prosecution read letters from the older sister who testified and the younger sister who was like around 13 at the time. And both were very upset with what had happened to the victim. And I'm pretty sure I have that on one of my videos. I mean, I know I do. And it's when he gets sentenced, and it's in there. And it's, you know, either you can look through my playlist and find it, or if you just, you know, go to the sentencing part, they are very powerful. This family was torn apart. And I mean, there was things in there like, excuse me, I'll never forgive my mother too. So they were mad at Tracy. Now, whether they'll have a change of heart, I'm just saying they were very upset how and why he was isolated from the rest of the family. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So I guess we're going to have to wait till June 24th. That's when the new time has been pushed back to the court hearing. And I did find this little piece here. It was provided by News Radio WFLA. It said that the offers are limited. It says Tracy Fairder was in court today. It was on the 10th for a plea conference. And the attorneys made a counter offer to the deal the state was offering her. Details of the offer and counter offer are limited, but it's been reported that the defense wants only probation for their client. And I don't know if the prosecution is going to buy that. What will she have to do to get probation, I wonder? So I think they're thinking about it. And I guess we'll just see what happens. Well, stay tuned. It should be interesting one way or the other. But what those poor kids, now they're all split apart. I don't know. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know where the older children are now. And I just pray they're in a good place. And it's just so sad. So sad. Well, okay. I hope this was enlightening for you. And thank you all so much for watching, commenting, subscribing. I love you as always. Please make sure to be kind to everyone. Be kind to you. And I'll see you the next time.